The humility of Bali Maharaj, reciprocation from Lord Vamana. That's our topic for this final class this evening. And of course, it's the Sunday program class for the Naperville Temple. From the morning class, something that I wanted to mention that I didn't is shown on your screen here. Before Shukadeva Goswami appeared, which is showing on the screen in the image, when Maharaj Parikshit was making his request of the assembled sages for instructions, he also asked for this particular benediction. There's three things. I pray that if I should again take my birth in the material world, I will have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friendly relation with all living beings, the Lord, his devotees, and everybody else. Attachment, complete attachment to Krishna, association with the devotees of Krishna, and friendly relations with all living entities. Now there's a very similar set of three requests. This came from the florist when Krishna entered Vrindavan, he entered Mathura, and he is received by the florist. I meant to mention it this morning also. The very words that Krishna spoke to the washerman in Sanskrit, the very same words he spoke to the florist, and the very different response. So because the florist was filled, he was anticipating that Krishna would come. He knew that Krishna would come. And he had a very special garland already prepared for Krishna and for Balaram. And Krishna didn't even have to ask for it. He just, with his eyes, he looked at that garland hanging on the wall. And the florist knew, and he was very happy. He, with great devotion, simple thing, he gave a garland to Krishna. And Krishna said, your devotion has pleased me so much. I wish that you would take benedictions, plural. And the verse says, Sudama chose, same three things, unshakable devotion for Krishna, the Supreme Soul of all existence, friendship with his devotees, and transcendental compassion for all living beings. From this morning's class. And Krishna's response, the last verse of this chapter, Krishna consented, and he also awarded him strength, long life, fame, beauty, and ever-increasing prosperity for his family. So, material well-being combined with spiritual well-being, that's Krishna. Now, back to this evening's topic, humility of Bali Maharaj. We'll start the evening discussion from something that comes before, well before Bali appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the place that we'll start from is the churning of the milk ocean. It's an old painting. You know who is the demons? They're on the left side. And the devatas are on the right side. The demons they didn't want to hold the tail, So instead they wanted the head, but the head had fire coming out. And there's Lord Vishnu sitting on top of the churning rod, the mountain. And down below there's Kurma. And so many things were generated, as you see, Aicha Shrava, and anyway, there's so many things. The Surabhi came, Lakshmi came, Airavata came, so many things, nice things came. But of the so many nice things that came, what was a particular interest for the demons was the nectar that would bring not exactly eternality, but longevity. And when they received that nectar, the personality of Godhead in his form of Mohini Murti, or her form, requested the demons to give her the pot of nectar, and she would distribute it. And somehow they agreed. They were very attracted by her feminine charms. Another interesting painting. And there she is, while they're reaching out to get some, she's already passing it over to the demigods. But as she was passing it out to the demigods, one of the demons named the Rahu sat in the line and started drinking, and then she realized and cut off his head with her Sudarshan chakra. So there you see the head of Rahu floating in the air, and so that's the Rahu planet in the heavenly realm. And so the Devas now had all the nectar. And now the demons were very displeased. They became intolerant that the demigods had the nectar and they were deprived of the nectar. And so they began a big, big battle against the demigods. Because remember, that's this churning of the milk ocean is where the whole thing started. The demons, were already powerful. And the advice was create a truce by churning the milk ocean, etc. So a big, big battle ensued. The battle took place on the beach of the milk ocean. And it became very furious. You see Airavata flying in the sky, and you see other demigods with their vehicles flying around in the sky, and the demons here and there. It's a big, intense battle scene. And Lord Vishnu became involved. And Lord Vishnu personally did combat with Kalanemi, and many other demons. All the other demons were killed by Vishnu. However, Shukracharya, the spiritual master of the demons, brought them back to life. So Vishnu killed them again. Now let's give some chronology. Kalanemi was the previous life of whom? Kamsa. And so the Bali was amongst the demons who were killed. Or there's versions that say he was killed and versions that he was just laid unconscious. But in either case, Shukracharya restored Bali's vitality, and as a result, Bali, so this is Bali, our topic is about Bali, this is some of the background of how he became indebted to Shukracharya. Now, Bali is in the dynasty or the lineage of Daityas, just as his grandfather Prahlad was the son of Hiranyakashipu. It's the Daitya dynasty, sons of Diti are the Daityas. So, Prahlad, Virochana, Bali. So he's, Shukracharya is his guru, or the guru of the demons, and he became very dedicated and appreciative of restoring his life. And Shukracharya saw the prowess of Bali, so he, along with the other descendants of Bhrigu, they engaged Bali in 100 Ashvamedha Yagyas. Somehow that number 100 seems to be important. It's the same number that Indra did. And when Prithu was approaching 100, then Indra stole the horse. Anyway, but he did 100 Ashvamedha Yagyas, which means, very, very powerful. Whatever power, he's now practically invincible. Now, Shukracharya knows how to do all these karmakanda rituals. And he came up with another one. And the other one, according to the Bhagavatam, is the Vishvajit Yagya. So, Vishva means universe, and Jitta means to conquer. And so it was a yagya by which he could conquer the universe. They were really going for it, Shukracharya and his assistants, so that Bali could be on top. And while the yagya was being performed, miraculously from the fire arose a chariot with fine horses, a flag, a bow, armor, and 2 quivers of arrows for him to conquer the universe. And attending the yagya was his grandfather. Bali Maharaja gave Bali an eternal garland of flowers. Now, by this time, he's connected to the spiritual realm. He's a Vaikuntha Vasi personality, so he somehow had this eternal garland of flowers. And Shukracharya gave him a conch shell. So he's these 100 Ashvamedha Yagyas, the Vishvajit Yagya, and so many weapons and benedictions. And now he's ready to regain or restore combat with the demigods. Remember, they've been defeated by Vishnu's intervention. The demons had been defeated. Now, with Bali becoming so powerful, he went to the kingdom of heaven, and nice painting. Indra saw them coming, heard his conch shell, and the vast, vast army ready to invade the kingdom of heaven. The whole situation looked as if they would swallow the sky and burn all directions. So you see, Indra looked a little apprehensive. So what did Indra do? Indra went to the spiritual master of the demigods and asked what to do. And Brihaspati is pictured as riding an elephant. So Brihaspati advised the demigods, Bali has done this Vishvajit Yagya. There's no way you're going to defeat him. Best that you just disappear. Make yourselves invisible. And leave the heavenly planets and go directly to the abode of Lord Vishnu and seek his assistance, because Bali has become invincible. So that's what they did. They just, doesn't say, what mystic power they used, but they just, poof, they became invisible. There was no big battle. They just became invisible and left. After they left, Aditi was very concerned with the loss of her sons and her, the kingdom and the power and the position of her sons, the demigods. particularly Indra. So she asked her husband what to do. He made a recommendation that she Aditi, perform a particular yagya or austerity, payovrata yagya, and a certain fasting and this and that for some period of time. He described to her precisely how to do it. She did it, and very, very effectively, the personality of Godhead himself in his four-armed form appeared. And she made her request that, please help regain the kingdom of Indra and the other demigods. And he agreed. He would appear as her son. And sure enough, he did. And so after some time, during this present Vivasvata Manu period, he appeared as Vamana. And nice painting of Kashyapa and Aditi and their attendants. Here's a nice close-up, very detailed painting, very nicely done. And now, how's a little dwarf Brahmin boy supposed to take care of the powerful Bali Maharaja who's invincible? Well, it was done, as we know. He made his way on the occasion of a yagya, one of the yagyas that Bali Maharaj was overseeing and being conducted by Shukracharya. And there's a nice description of his appearance, the clothes that he wore, the water pot, the articles in his hand, this special umbrella. And there's many nice paintings. He was darkish in complexion. Pretty fancy umbrella. And he made his way to the place where this yagya was being conducted. And a very nice description, very beautiful description. When he came to the place where the yagya was being performed, it was as if another sun was rising in the morning, because he was very effulgent, so effulgent that Bali couldn't help but see because like another sun rising on the horizon. And as he approached, he could understand this is not an ordinary person. He didn't understand it was the personality of Godhead, but Shukracharya could understand. And so we know what happened. What happened? Bali received the young dwarf Brahmin very nicely, because he's remember, Bali has like this interesting role. He's in the Daitya dynasty, but at the same time he's a great devotee. In fact, he's one of our 12 Mahajans, a great authority, a great devotee. But he's in the service of the Daityas. But he knows culture, so as soon as this Brahmin boy came, immediately he welcomed him. Now, many of the paintings show this etiquette from a water pot. Water was offered to his hands. Now, it doesn't show he washed his feet, but it shows his offering water to his hands for washing. Looks like behind him, that's Shukracharya. Another nice line drawing. Bali greeting Vamana. He was given a special seat, and Bali Maharaj offered his words of appreciation. You've come at just the right time. The presence of a personality like you will certainly make this sacrifice auspicious? Please let me know what gift I can give to you. Anything at all that's in my power to give, it's yours. So, a dwarf has short legs. You know what a dwarf is? Somebody that has really short legs. They're, instead of the regular height of a person, they're really short. A dwarf. And particularly short is their legs. Now you know what a dwarf is. Vamana up here is a dwarf Brahmana. Dwarf Brahmana. So he said, I don't need much, I'm a Brahmana, you can just give me 3 paces of land. And he looked at his legs and said, 3 paces of land. That's all I require. Shukracharya said, no, don't do it. Why not? Because he's Vishnu. And because he's Vishnu, he's very clever. He'll take everything with those 3 paces of land. And if he takes everything, then how are you going to perform your karmakanda rituals? Because you need wealth and you need space to do the rituals. And you won't be able to do your rituals. And you won't be able to become spiritually powerful and elevated. And worst of all, I won't get any dakshin. I'll be unemployed. He didn't say that, but that was the implied. And he even gave a clever solution. When you said, because you said already, of course kings don't break their word, but you said already, yes, but you didn't say Om, along with saying yes. So since you didn't say Om, you can take it back. You don't have to do it. And as we know, Bali violated that instruction. Now, there's different ways of looking at why the next problem happened, because he violated what his spiritual master said. Is that why it happened, that Lord Vamana took everything from him? Or that he violated what his spiritual master said was the right thing to do because he, Bali, knew the scriptures. He had studied the scriptures. And the scriptures are very clear. You offer everything to Vishnu. And if he's Vishnu, you're saying don't offer everything to Vishnu, then I'm not going to follow that kind of instruction because it's against the Vedic codes. So he did the right thing. And there's another BBT painting showing Bali holding that urn, because that's what he was using for washing the hands of Vamana. There's Shukracharya, very disturbed. No! Take it back. Don't surrender to Vishnu. But it's too late, and Bali was not going to comply. So, Vamana started making himself really big. It's one of the 8 mystic cities to become really big. And he was really, really big. Such a gigantic form that with 1 pace he covered the entire earth and sky. With his hands, he covered all directions. With his 2nd step, he covered all the upper planetary systems. And he poked a hole through the covering of the universe, even above Brahmaloka. Brahmaloka is the topmost planet, right? So even above Brahmaloka, that's where the covering of the universe. And he kicked a hole in the covering of the universe. Wow, it was really big. How big was this little dwarf Brahmin? He was as big can be. There's a nice painting. Here's a very well-preserved deity. If if you take a look at his left foot, it shows his left foot is at Lord Brahma's feet. Actually, it was above Brahma's head. And down at the bottom, there's Vamana with his little umbrella, and Shri and Bhu Devi on either side. So that's 2 steps. So Vamana asked him, what about the 3rd step? You promised me 3 paces of land. And so the solution was, no problem. You can place your foot on my head. That's the 3rd step. So Vamana did that as he's paying his obeisances. Again, this is a very celebrated pastime, so there's many nice drawings and illustrations of the pastime. And after he placed his foot on his head, then said, well, that's not the 3rd pace of land. You promised me 3 paces of land. And because you made a promise that you didn't fulfill, you're to be punished. So, and now that the whole universe is mine, and I've taken it from you because you offered it to me, I'm going to tie you up. I'm going to bind you with ropes because he's the emperor now. He took over the kingdom from Bali. And he had him tied up in this, criminal-like fashion. In the painting, it shows his grandfather, Prahlad, came to see the situation. And there was a whole commotion. Like, hey, wait a minute, he surrendered everything and you're punishing him? And, some other people, including Prahlad, saying, no, this is very good. He's the Supreme Lord. He can do with his devotee anything he likes. Let's see what the dialogue actually says. Being falsely proud of your possessions, you promised to give me land, but you could not fulfill your promise. Therefore, because your promise was false, you must live for a few years in hellish life. Far from being elevated to the heavenly planets or fulfilling one's desires, one who does not properly give a beggar what he has promised falls to a hellish condition of life. Pretty intense, huh? Bali says, I do not fear being deprived of all my possessions, living in a hellish life, being arrested for poverty by the ropes of Varuna, or being punished by you, as much as I fear defamation. Although a father, mother, brother, or friend may sometimes punish one as their well-wisher, they never punish their subordinate like this. Because you are the most worshipable Lord, I regard the punishment you have given me as most exalted. Goes back and forth. My grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, is famous, being recognized by all your devotees. Although harassed in many ways by his father, Hiranyakashipu, he still remained faithful, taking shelter at your lotus feet. And then he speaks some philosophy about the uselessness of the material body and comes back around to saying the importance of remaining perpetually surrendered unto you. Now, Shukracharya warned him, is Vishnu. He's just demonstrated he's Vishnu. He was right. Only by providence have I been forcibly brought under your lotus feet and deprived of all my opulence. Because of the illusion created by temporary opulence, people in general who live under material conditions, facing accidental death at every moment, do not understand that this life is temporary. Only by providence have I been saved from that condition. So Prahlad spoke similarly. Yeah. But Bali Maharaja's chaste wife, afraid and aggrieved at seeing her husband arrested, immediately offered obeisances to Lord Vamana Dev. She folded her hands and spoke. Gives her name here, Vindhyavali. And she's addressing him as Lord Vishnu. Lord Brahma speaks. I mean, there's a lot of commotion going on about what was done, what shouldn't be done. And then Vamana speaks after all of that commotion. My dear Lord Brahma, because of material opulence, a foolish person becomes dull-witted and mad. Thus he has no respect for anyone within the three worlds and defies even my authority. To such a person, I show special favor by first taking away all his possessions. While rotating in the cycle of birth and death again and again in different species, because of his own fruitive activities, the dependent living entity by good fortune may happen to become a human being. This human birth obtained is very rare. This is somehow not the right chapter. 23, there we go. Anyway, when it wanted to read was, Vamana explains why he did what he did. Because of his great tolerance, I have given him a place not obtainable even by the demigods. He will become king of the heavenly planets during the period of the next Manu. Until Bali Maharaj achieves the position of the king of heaven, he shall live on the planet of Sutala, which was made by Vishwakarma according to my order. Because it is especially protected by me, it is free from all mental and bodily miseries, fatigue, dizziness, defeat, and all other disturbances. Bali, you may now go live there peacefully. Oh, there's a section I meant to find. He is declaring to everybody, I did this deliberately to show the very special position of Bali Maharaj. Deprived of everything, he still made no protest. It shows his greatness. The whole world, I wanted the world to know how great is he. He's so dedicated to me that even this, no protest, no sound, just simply accepting. Oh, Bali Maharaj, you may now go to the planet Sutala, which is desired even by the demigods. Live there peacefully, surrounded by your friends and relatives. All good fortune to you. On the planet Sutala, not even the predominating deities of other planets, what to speak of ordinary people, will be able to conquer you. As far as the demons are concerned, If they transgress your rule, my disc will kill them. Oh, great hero, I shall always be with you and give you protection in all respects, along with your associates and paraphernalia. Moreover, you will always be able to see me there, because there you will see my supreme prowess, your materialistic ideas and anxieties that have arisen from your association with the demons and Danavas will immediately be vanquished. Pretty amazing. So Bali Maharaj, with tears in his eyes, is offering prayers. There's some texts that are missing. The Supreme Personality of God had assured Prahlad Maharaj, you shall be able to see me there in my usual feature with conch, disc, club, and lotus in hand, because of your transcendental bliss due to always personally seeing me, you will have no further bondage to fruitive activities. So he's going to protect him. He's honoring, he's giving him a position, he's depriving him of the worldly opulence in one sense, but giving greater opulence in Sutala and protecting him from his material desires by his personal presence, standing at the gate of Sutala, not allowing any intruder to come, with the Sudarshan Chakra and club, chopping anyone that tries to interfere. He's completely safe and protected, even from his own material desires that arose due to a bad association. Here's a nice drawing of where Sutala is. You find it in chapter 25 of the 5th canto, but there it is. Above, from 7 up, Bhuvar and Swargaloka, and then Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka, then going down, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, number 10, in that diagram at the bottom. And finally, in the 5th canto, where it describes Sutala, it's stated there, Vamana stayed at the gate of Bali in Sutala. Once Ravana tried to have combat with Bali, Vamana kicked Ravana with his toe and sent him flying 80,000 miles away. 80,000 miles away. So we did a little math. What's the circumference of the Earth planet? Anybody know? Circumference of the Earth planet. It's a much smaller number than 80,000. That's the circumference all the way around. Forget the number. Something thousands. Look it up and see if Google Guru knows. But you know, it's a big. He kicked him into outer space. How many? 24,000 is the circumference of the Earth. 80,000 miles. Shoo. And that's just his toe. And Ravana was big and powerful. He so it looked like Bali surrendered everything, and look how he's being treated. He's being treated like a criminal. And there's different versions. One version says the daughter, the other says the wife of Bali disliked what he did, and later she became Putana. But so there was a lot of concern about surrendering everything. Shukracharya had been violated. Gosh, let me see if I. Well, it's not working. I can't find the verse. Just speaking with that rather than reading the verse, because the verse is very nicely composed. Vamana fulfilled, in the form of Vamana, he fulfilled the request of Aditi to restore the kingdom of Indra back to Indra. So that happens in the beginning of the next chapter. And he's showing the far more elevated than Indra is the character of Bali. Bali is one of the 12 Mahajans, and Indra certainly isn't. But his character is the character of the exalted personality that he was. He surrendered everything, and he made no protest when he was punished for not surrendering the 3 paces of land. So that's the reciprocation of the personality of Godhead. He wanted his glory to be known, and so sure enough, his glory became known. And his one of the lessons, I mean, this is like an extreme situation that our life is not going to be confronted with, but sometimes we're confronted with seeming unfair set of circumstances based upon what we have done, and what we have done, what we have done, and what we have done, and then next thing, this most unfair set of circumstances may manifest. So what do you do? Well, the lesson from Bali is you stay fixed in this unchanging, unmoving position. That is, I'm the servant of the personality of Godhead. Someone was just sharing this with me in a letter. They've been through a very trying experience, and they were feeling hurt and victimized by the circumstance unfairly. And something that helped them flip it around was to understand the circumstance. It has something to do with their own doings, their own past activities, etc. And so here we are. And Krishna doesn't remove his shelter. Krishna didn't remove his shelter. Vishnu didn't remove his shelter from Bali, although it looked like it. And for most people, it surely would have felt like it. So, but he didn't feel hurt. He felt that it's the greatest of mercy. That's how he said it. No one has been dealt with this way, and that you're dealing with me this way, this is your special mercy. And it was. And he was able to see it. And as a result, he had, Vishnu became the guard at his door perpetually. Knowing if demigods would come, if demons would come, if anybody would come and try to disturb him, finished. Ravana would come, finished. Opulence, everything that he needed. So it's a misconception that these that I had. The lower 7 planetary systems are bad places. Well, they're not good places, but they're not hellish planets. Hellish planets are below the 7 planetary systems. Those planets they're called in the Bhagavatam the subterranean heavenly planets. There's opulence that even surpasses the opulence of heaven. So it sounds like not a bad place to go, right? If you want opulence, then that's not a bad place to go. So actually reading those sections of the 25th chapter, I think it is, 24th chapter of the 5th canto that describes these places, the unwanted part of it is, well, there's several. There's no sunlight, because Bhumandala stretches the entire plane, and the sunlight is above Bhumandala, so there's no sunlight. But there's other light, it's by artificial light. Jewels on the hoods of serpents and things like that. And it looks like they're going to live forever, and then all of a sudden they die. So, the attachments and attachments and attachments, and then poof. Now, death is not present any place at any time, but it's made extreme because there's no expectation, and then poof. So those are some of the features. But this very position after the present Manu, at the change of each Manu, there's a change of all the major demigods. There's a new set appointed. Something like when a president comes in, he appoints his cabinet in a similar way. When new Manu comes in, he appoints his different demigods. So it's going to be the next Indra. So he's deprived of the kingdom of Indra, but he becomes the next Indra. So he'll live such a long life and be protected and most importantly, protected even from his material desires. Material desires that arose due to bad association. So he's our Mahajan living in Sutala until the next Manu comes. So that's the topic for the humility of Bali Maharaj. Humility means he's fixed in devotional service. Even in extreme situations, the most extreme situations, fixed in devotional service. And one who is in such a disposition towards the Supreme Lord, he reciprocates. Although it may not look like it, at least initially. It may look like, what? Why is bad things happening to good people? For the Lord's protection is always there when one is faithful and always inclined to be in service. That's Bali Maharaj, pure devotee. So let's see if there's some discussion. Going for 40 minutes, 40 minutes.
Comedy.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. We have a question from Shrita Prabhu, who asks, From Vamana Dev's story, it appears that Shukracharya is a very elevated person. He could even predict how the Lord would occupy his steps and explains the same to Bali Maharaj. It is so bewildering that a disciple could understand the essence of the scriptures, but not the spiritual master himself. He went to an extent that he even cursed his disciple in an externally difficult circumstance. Could I kindly ask your comments on Shukracharya?
What was the question at the end?
Could I kindly ask your comments on Shukracharya?
Oh, he wants a comment. My comment on Shukracharya.
Yes, Marge, sorry.
He's, well, taking Prabhupada's very simple formula of how do we tell who's a devotee and who's a demon. And if they accept Vishnu or Krishna, they're a devotee. If not, they're a demon. So he's very knowledgeable and very this and very that, bring people back to life. And, he has mystic powers, and he's not an ordinary fellow. He's the spiritual master of the demons. But he's opposed to Vishnu. So he can do wonderful things by worldly estimation, but he's opposed to Vishnu. And he's guiding those that are opposed to Vishnu. Next.
Thank you, Marge. Srila Prabhu has another question. He's asking, is it the right understanding that it is the mercy of the Lord upon Bali Maharaj that he even considered outer space to put his second step, although it is generally not considered a pace of land?
Well, there's the covering. It's the covering of the universe is one of the coverings of the universe is Earth, but it's indicative of he is the proprietor of everything. Now, Bali wasn't the proprietor of everything. He had taken over the heavenly realm, but not the other upper realms. But Vamana was, taking over everything because he's the proprietor of everything. That's the significance, my understanding at least. Anything else?
Yes, Marge, we have one more question. This question is from Subhadra. She's asking, it's a two-parter. Putana, in her last life, was a descendant of Prahlad Maharaj.
Yes.
Yet, Krishna killed her. How is this possible?
That question came up well, she was inimical. I mean, I'm not sure what the nature of the question is. Being a descendant of Prahlad because Lord Nrsingadev promised he wouldn't kill any descendants, is that what the question is?
I believe so, Maharaj.
You believe
Waiting
so?
for...
Well, the answer to that one, there's two answers. The easier one is when descendant generally refers to male members of a family. Descendants generally refer to male members of a family. So it wasn't a violation of his promise to Prahlad. Next.
The second part of that question, Maharaj, was, and if Krishna killed Putana personally, why didn't he kill Dhenukasura personally?
The explanation that Bhaktivinoda Thakur offers is that there are two demons that the two demons that Balaram killed are very special, represent very special features that one requires personal endeavor as to deal with the unwanted features of devotional life. There's personal endeavor that must be made that then become empowered by Balaram to address removing of unwanted things. And so that's the reason that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives. Krishna didn't kill, Balaram killed, because these two demons that Balaram killed represent features of a sadhaka's life that they must personally pay special attention to. That's his explanation. And then Balaram gives the strength to deal with it, unwanted things. Is that it?
Sorry, Marge. There's a question by Yugala Preeti Mataji. She's asking, why was a pure devotee like Bali Maharaj given the position of Indra instead of going back to the spiritual world?
Well, why not? It's not like Bali Maharaj was wanting that post, but he can do a service in any place that the Lord wants him to do some service. So your question is, why would the Lord want him to do some service? Because he wants a qualified person to be Indra. It doesn't mean that after his life, he where was his destination after his life as Indra? He was given a benediction to live a long life. And in that long life, he's going to be doing some service for the personality of Godhead somewhere until that lifetime is over. So he is living a long life. He continues to be a Mahajan even in the post of Indra. He continues to be a Mahajan even in the post of Sutala. So his destination, whenever his life is over, is the spiritual world. And while here, he's going to do some service, according to the Lord's indication. In short, he probably went back to Godhead after whenever he will leave his life, leave this body. Anything else?
Marge, there's 3 more questions.
Ooh.
Should I?
Go ahead. Yes.
This one is from Atulya Mataji. She's asking, sometimes it puzzles me that the same person is viewed subjectively by different devotees. For one person, that person is very humble, but for another person, and they could view the same person as the opposite of being humble or difficult. If that one person is humble in nature, how is it that different people have different perceptions of that person? How should that one person maintain their mood and individuality, even though multiple people subjectively view that person differently?
Well, they're totally disconnected. The person that has nature X lives according to nature X. Knowing that different persons are going to view their nature other than X, and some people will view their nature as X, and that's okay because that's the way it is. We're individuals, we have different perceptions of the same thing. So that's how you maintain it. You just be true to what your nature is, and then you act accordingly. Now, yeah, there's subtleties to that. That is to say, somebody in their office may act differently than they act in their home, and then they act in their home, they may be different than when they're in a formal function, and so we have roles to play, and when we have roles to play, we act accordingly. That's not a different personality. So persons will be perceived differently because of the roles that they play sometimes. And why is it like that? Just modes of nature. Different persons have different perceptions because of different relationships. Next.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is from Radha Kunja Bihari Prabhu, who's asking, can we consider the episode of Bali Maharaj to signify that if an elevated devotee somehow gets into demoniac association, then the Lord will step in personally and guard the devotee from all inauspiciousness?
So that's not the main, that is an outcome, but it's not the main message. It is an outcome, yes. It's not the main message. The main message is the total dedication and surrender that Bali had and has to the personality of Godhead, to an extreme. Next.
The next question is from Paramananda Prabhu, who asks, Aditi prayed to Krishna per the instruction of Kashyapa Muni for material results of returning to the heavenly kingdom for her sons and vanquishing of the enemy of her sons. As a result, Vamana appeared as the son of Aditi, which is a very high benediction in spite of the material nature of the request. How do we understand this?
He's very kind. And she's a great devotee, as is her husband. I mean, she's not a resident of Vrindavan. She's a mother of demigods. So that tells you something about the condition of heart, doesn't it? She's in the position that she's in because her heart condition is the condition it is. That's not surprising. Demigods do all kinds of things like that. They want protection from demons, and she wants protection for her son from demons. No surprise. Anything more?
Yes, Marge, we have 3 more questions.
Ooh. Okay.
This next question is from Ritu Mataji, who asks, Bali Maharaj could clearly see this as a great mercy of the Lord. Are we to understand that every experience we go through is a mercy of the Lord as it brings us closer to the Lord?
The opportunity to see all things like that is there. Now, I'm thinking, a nice verse, this is, the answer to your question has to do, the answer is yes, if you're a devotee. A very nice verse in Brahma Samhita says, Yes, Twindra Gopam Atavendra Mahosva Karma, etc. That for those who are not devotees, from the topmost Indra to the Indra Gopa germ, it's the exchange is meeting or delivering the karma of that living entity. And then separate category is those who are devotees. Then the answer with the other devotees, the answer is yes. The yes answer is the Lord interacts with the devotees in such a way that the very root cause of their material existence, namely ignorance and evil desires, are taken away. And that's mercy. So one can look at getting one's karma as mercy, or you can look at it as a punishment. So we're reaping the result of our own misdeeds. You can call that mercy or punishment. For sure, for the devotees, it's mercy. Although it may not look like that because, things are being taken away. When those things that are being taken away are contaminations. One may go, ouch, you took that away? That was my favorite contamination. So the answer to your question is yes, particularly for devotees.
The next question, Maharaj, is from Rangamata.
I want to say something more. I'm going to be narrating a story about Saint Francis of Assisi, and is specific to gratitude. And the story that is told about him says, in an extreme sense, that the hand of the Lord and the kindness of the Lord is there, and he's feeling joy, not just gratitude. He's feeling joy when those things that are meant for feeling the Lord's presence come in the form of some misfortune. He feels joy. I'll send that to you. It's a very nice story. Go ahead, next question.
Sorry, Maharaj. The next question is from Rangamataji, who asks, why didn't Aditi receive self-realization like Dhruva Maharaj with a personal darshan of Vishnu, as she was also advised to worship Vishnu? Rather, she asked for material desire fulfillment.
Because the Lord reciprocates and he doesn't interfere. No. Dhruva had Narada Muni's mercy. Dhruva had his mother's, Suniti's mercy. And he had an intense desire to receive Vishnu's mercy. And Aditi's orientation was a little different. It was on, strongly on the material side, and not to say that Dhruva's wasn't, but her the purification that came for Aditi was not the same as the purification that came for Dhruva. And my understanding is it has a lot to do with the merciful instruction that he got from his mother and from Narada, which was pretty much the same instruction, other than the details of how to engage in devotional service. But he was engaged in devotional service. She was doing a particular vrata to get some benediction from Vishnu. So he appeared for that purpose. Next.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is from Yolanda Mataji. She asks, can statements such as seeing faults in ourselves and it's due to our own past misdeeds lead to self-blaming, even in situations where one is in reality treated unfairly by others?
Well, Bali wasn't feeling victim consciousness. Was he treated fairly? You can hold up, yardsticks and say he wasn't treated fairly. But what was happening, from what Prahlad says and what Vamana says, he was being freed from his attachments, which is that same statement as that Yastvindra Gopamata Vendra Baho Swakarma verse from Brahma Samhita. It was kindness. It wasn't harshness. I mean, it wasn't, what was the word that you used? What was the word that she used? Unfairly?
Yes, Maharaj.
Unfairly. I mean, from material point of view, yes, and from a spiritual point of view, no. The question that you're asking has everything to do with our topic, the topic of spiritual humility. So, spiritual hurt or material hurt. The material hurt is there, but the spiritual benefit, and similar to Ritu's question about seeing the mercy of Krishna in all circumstances. So that's not the humility of a Vaishnava is not hurtful to them. It's they're provided protection, as was Bali, protected externally and internally. I hope I'm making sense. Next.
That's all we have, Maharaj.
Okay. We've gone for an hour and 15 minutes. The Sunday class usually ends a half hour, 15 minutes ago. So I think we're going to end. And whatever happens after that, happens after that. What happens after that? Okay. This is it. Well, thank you all for joining this interesting event, virtual seminar, winter retreat. And we'll call it a close. Thank you very much for coming. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Recording stopped.